On May the 23rd, 1964, fireman Jim Templeton tried out his new Pentagon 35mm camera.
Goldmedaille für Praktika Nova 1 mit PL-System vom VEB Pentagon Dresden.
Going on a family outing to a local beauty spot on the Solway Firth called Burgh Marsh. A favourite local picnic spot, oddly marked with a large concrete arrow that was laid in the ground in World War II to help pilots find the Solway Firth bombing range. Accompanying Jim and his new camera was his wife Annie and their two daughters Frances and Elizabeth. Elizabeth had also got something new, a pretty new dress. This summer day was an ideal opportunity for Jim to try out the camera with a new type of colour film, Kodak Color X.
Here's how you can relive a good time over and over again. Kodak.
The official film of our trip to the zoo.
That had just been released by Kodak in 1963 as a replacement for the Kodacolor stock. Jim's idea was to photograph Liz in her new dress with the new camera and the new Kodacolor X film. Annie remembers picking wild flowers from the meadow while Jim set up the shot. Mission accomplished. The film was handed in to the chemist, the local Kodak processing center. When Jim went to pick up the results, the photo technician said he was sorry that the portrait of Liz was ruined by a mysterious person standing behind her shoulder. It was a shame, he said, because it was the best shot. Who was this mysterious figure standing behind Elizabeth's shoulder, dressed in what looks like a white spacesuit with a helmet? This photograph started a chain of events that stretched right across the globe. From the Eastman Kodak headquarters in the USA to the Woomara rocket test range in Australia. This is the strange story of the Solway Firth Spaceman. Jim was rather annoyed and puzzled that the best shot of Liz was ruined. He showed the strange picture to a colleague that worked at his local fire station, and it was sent to the police forensic lab in Preston, who dismissed it as a joke. Annoyed and intrigued by his mystery image, Jim sent a copy of the picture to the Cumberland News, who ran a front-page story called The Solway Spaceman in June 1964. This was the middle of the space race.
But if I were to say, my fellow citizens, that we shall send to the moon 240,000 miles away from the control station in Houston, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall, the length of this football field, made of new metal alloys, some of which have not yet been invented, capable of standing heat and stresses several times more than have ever been experienced, fitted together with a precision better than the finest watch, carrying all the equipment needed for propulsion, guidance, control, communications, food, and survival, on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth, re-entering the atmosphere at speeds of over 25,000 miles per hour, causing heat about half that on the temperature of the sun, almost as hot as it is here today, and do all this, and do it right, and do it first before this decade is out, then we must be bold.
President Kennedy had promised the American people to put a man safely on the moon and return him before the end of the decade. And Russia was retaliating with even more audacious space missions. Everyone was intrigued by the Solway Spaceman picture. It became news of the day, and the picture even reached Kodak headquarters in the USA, who offered to analyze the original negative to see if there's any faults, because they were concerned about their new Kodacolor X film stock. Finding none, Kodak offered a prize of a year's worth of color film to anyone who could solve the mystery. That prize goes unclaimed to this day. So, end of story? No. To understand what happened next, you have to understand the significance of the British space race. Yes, 1960s Britain had a space program, and its rocket engine test facility was based here at Spedadum. Just a few miles south of the Solway Firth. Hidden from view on 3,240 hectares of desolate moorland. What Britain was doing here was testing their Blue Streak rocket. Originally built as an ICBM, but now converted to a space launch vehicle. Spedadum was Britain's Cape Canaveral, with its massive concrete launch platforms and underground bunkers. But space rockets were sadly never launched from here, as the British government dashed all hopes of a space program by cancelling the project. But Blue Streak had a second life by becoming part of the ELDO project. ELDO, the European Launcher Development Organization.
This giant will blast a new route to the stars as part of a European plan to put a new satellite into space. The rocket is British. Its name is Blue Streak. It's part of a project which links 7 nations together in the European Launcher Development Organization. The rocket, in its present state, is backed by the long record of experience dating from the pioneer days of flight, which has put the British aircraft industry among the world's leaders, and to experience in the space age fields of rocket propulsion, electronics, radio, and radar and micro-miniaturization.
They're aimed to pool European talent to build their own satellite launch program. Britain contributed its old Blue Streak ICBM with its Rolls-Royce engines. France and Germany supplied the second and third stages, and Italy would build the satellite. And the rocket launch site was Woomara Test Range in southern Australia.
300 miles northwest of Adelaide, just to the north of a dry salt pan called Lake Hart, is Woomara Range.
An enormous range stretching just outside of Adelaide all the way to the northwest corner of Australia and onto the Indian Ocean.
28 miles out of the town, Blue Streak is now at her launch site. For the range staff and the trials team, weeks of preparation lie ahead. Weeks of precise work at Launcher 6A and all the way down the 1,000-mile desert range, perhaps the best overland rocket range in the world.
So you're all jumping up and down saying, what's the connection with Jim's spaceman photograph? Well, in a strange parallel universe, Project Eldo was launching their rocket on the same day that Jim took the picture of his daughter Elizabeth. Just as the rocket launch platform was cleared of all personnel, the Woomara range safety officer pressed the abort button. He saw two figures in white spacesuits walking right underneath the fully fueled rocket. And they were wearing exactly the same protective gear as the mysterious figure in the photograph behind young Liz. Strange coincidence? Australia took security seriously after being accused by the Americans of being a soft target for Soviet spies. In fact, Soviet spy trawlers were in the Indian Ocean watching every launch. So the Woomara Range Security Services looked at every angle to work out who these weird figures were. So now, thousands of miles apart, there were two pieces that looked like they came from the same jigsaw. Who put those jigsaw pieces together, I don't know. But Jim Templeton recalls a visit by two UK security officers who drove him out to Burgh Marsh, insisting that Jim showed them exactly where he'd taken the photograph of his daughter Liz. And they questioned him vigorously about a second spaceman in the area. Jim knew nothing about spacemen, but what he does remember from that fateful day is that the UK security people left, leaving him to walk home from Burgh Marsh. My research has turned up a new twist that might solve the mystery of the Solway Spaceman. To me, it's not a spaceman. It's a figure dressed in protective gear, very similar to the suits worn by nuclear workers in the nearby Windscale and Chapelcross nuclear facilities. In fact, you can see Chapelcross from Burgh Marsh. And fallout investigations were still going on after the devastating recent Windscale fire. So is this the real answer to the Solway Spaceman? Who knows? It still leaves a lot of big questions. Who were the two figures under the rocket at the Woomara Range, and why is the CCTV footage of the incident missing? Why was Jim questioned about a second spaceman? Was the Solway Spaceman just a camera fault caused by Jim's new camera? One theory is if you take your eye off the viewfinder while you're taking the picture, light can enter and fog the film. Another idea is that Annie, Jim's wife, stood up quickly and is just standing behind Liz, but is badly overexposed. All I know is that looking at clues from history, we can discover connections hidden from everyday view. So maybe there is a link between the Spadatum Space Center and the Solway Spaceman. The truth is out there.